Hello and welcome to the agenda on Politics Social, and I'm joined as always by Phil Moorhouse. Hey Phil, how you doing?
Afternoon, all right.
It's all good. Oh, our names are too big on the screen. I'll get rid of them. That didn't work. Big shout out to everyone in the chat who's watching. We've got Dark 4x4 in there. We've got Johan. We've got Reagan Elite. We've got Graham Haller. Or Haller, maybe. We've got Attila, Hey Hun, Puds, and Gravity, and others. If you'd like to join them in the chat, all you need to do is smash that subscribe button and then wait a minute. So you calm down. And then you write something sensible, and we let you stay. Yay! So today we're going to be talking about the budget, right? The budget? We're going to talk about the budget.
Yes.
It's been quite funny. Like, the funniest bit of all this is just watching the very privileged people, the pompous, privileged pricks who have been basically telling us what to think since forever, but especially since the Brexit vote. All the Brexiteers have come out, and they absolutely hate this budget, Phil. They hate it.
Do you know my favourite?
All of their power, all of their wealth. They hate it. Tell me why.
I don't know why they hate it. I'll tell you my favourite. Well, they've been told to hate it. I mean, people who supported Brexit, by and large, without trying to paint everyone with the same brush, by and large, supported Brexit because they were told to by a snake oil salesman.
Yes.
So,
true.
Obviously, if they're told to hate the budget, they'll hate the budget. But my favourite one, I mean, this is where you know you're on dodgy ground. The Telegraph yesterday, I'm sure you've seen this, were asking us to be sympathetic to a couple, right, who own 60 properties for renting and have a boat. Honestly, that was in the Telegraph. They were saying, these poor pensioners, because they're in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
These poor pensioners, they were going to have they had this dream of using their boat to travel the world. Now they're going to, because they've got 60 properties that they rent out. And we're supposed to feel sorry for them.
60.
We're supposed to feel bad for them.
My God.
There are some people who've lost out. There are some people who lost out who shouldn't have lost out. There are some small groups of vulnerable people who have every right to feel aggrieved. They are not one of them.
We're not hearing much about them, though.
Oh, no.
I mean,
So I would say,
what are the I don't know, what are the scenarios in which you could be on a low income, keep struggling to keep your head above water, and this budget is just going to push you under? What circumstances come about?
Those who are on universal credit, obviously, because inflation in the month it's decided happened to be 1.7%, that's all they get. And, you're talking about a universal credit level that was has been set for 14 years by the Tories with their guidelines.
Yeah.
So those people have been done very badly. I would talk about in terms of individual groups. As well, you've got those who, Labour had talked about compensation for the infected blood scandal, for example.
Yes.
And Horizon, which they're making the point that although the Tories announced that, they put aside zero money for it.
Yes.
Because they knew Labour would have to deal with it.
This is the post office Horizon scandal, yeah?
Yes. What we haven't heard are compensation for WASPy women. Which, is a big thing. And I thought Labour would be saying something about that and haven't done.
Okay.
And then there are other little groups. I mean, the excluded, for example, we sort of didn't expect anything there because Labour had been kept quiet about that. They weren't quite in opposition.
COVID excluded, or is this the Brexit
COVID.
Excluded? So this is the self-employed people who, because they didn't have their own company, didn't get anything in terms of...
There's several groups of them, but... there were people who did not get access to furlough support, even though they were working.
Right. Even though they should have.
And Rishi Sunak said that it was a political decision not to. And Labour, at the time, attacked it. Now, obviously, we could say, money in the budget and stuff like that. But what Excluded were wanting them to at least do, and this is certainly something I supported, was... as they are seeking to recover money defrauded from the public related to COVID anyway, and as that money would have been part of that 2020 budget, it would seem reasonable to me. There are some people who will have moved on and they've sort of got themselves ready, and you could argue about compensation for that. But there are some people who are still financially completely screwed to the point where they are, and every month, some more of them basically become largely insolvent. You mentioned that was something there. So, what they could have done was to say, look, you've got, we're going to recover billions of pounds. We can set aside some of it to help out those who are in dire straits right now, who were denied furlough support. And it's not necessarily giving money to everyone who was denied furlough support. That's more complicated and potentially more expensive. But if you can demonstrate that you were denied furlough support and you are in dire financial straits as a result of it, not because you've been reckless with money, but because you were told by the government to take out these loans, which are stupidly expensive, and they've completely financially screwed you. Then we've set aside some emergency money. That could have been I thought that could have been a big point during the election, that where the Tories failed you, Labour will protect you. And they didn't.
Yeah.
So we didn't expect it in the budget, but nonetheless, that is a group of people that could have done with a bit more love.
The one thing that really stuck out to me as an advocate of public transport, obviously the lifting of the cap to lifting. Yeah. That's not the right word. The raising of the cap to £3 rather than £2. Now, if you need to get there and back for a job, you're literally earning £2 a day less now, and that's £10 a week. And over the course of a year, that could be 500 quid worse off. But someone mentions in the chat, this is David Warburton Burley, was saying about, you were talking about the fare rises being capped to inflation. So tell us a bit more about that.
Well, all I know is what Louise Hager said, who is the Transport Secretary, that although the cap... Labour are arguing the cap's not been raised to 3 because as of next January, there was no cap, because although the Tories promised to maintain the £2 cap, it's like, well, why didn't you budget for the whole tax year then? Because that's a bit suspicious. So they're arguing that actually what they've done, the cap was going anyway. They have introduced another one just at a high level. But anyway, that's semantics. But Louise Haig also said that fares will not be allowed to go above the level of inflation. Now, I don't know what jiggery pokery there is. That suggests to me that fares shouldn't necessarily be going straight up to £3.
Right, but they probably will.
I know how things work. Yes, that's what I was thinking.
And that's
exactly
twice
what I was thinking.
As much for each journey
anyway.
as you have to pay in London. That really pisses me off. Like,
yeah,
London...
well, I saw 175 now, 175 in London. So yeah, it's yeah.
And this is go a shorter distance on a shitty service that comes once an hour, doesn't run on Sundays, and now it's going to be £3 each way. And if you're a family of 4, that's £24 because you don't get much off for kids these days. No,
that's what surprised me, that there is no child, because I'm not a traveller like you, so I rarely use the bus, and you can't actually get a bus around here. There is a bus service, but it's shite, and I have a car. The fact that there basically isn't a child rate on a lot of bus services now.
Yeah.
Because there used to be.
Yeah.
Back in the days when I did take the bus.
So let's talk about where you think that, apart from what you've already mentioned, like, where do you think that Rachel Reeves has gone wrong in this budget? And then we'll talk later on where
it's always difficult right. Because you always have decisions to make, and just politically, we know that in terms of like welfare, first of all, I've tried to look at the figures, and I'm not seeing a huge level of expected savings for like welfare in general, other than switching over some people to universal credit and tackling benefit fraud. And I actually just noticed by there, because there's a lot of concern about the checking of the bank accounts. And the big issue had followed this one up. So as I understood it anyway, we weren't talking about randomly checking bank accounts of anyone on benefits.
Yeah.
It was specifically of people convicted of fraud.
Right, okay.
And even then, so the big issue chased it up in terms of like safeguards, and then even then it's not automatic. So first of all, it only applies to people who have had, now it's not necessarily fraud, it could include an overpayment, which people can be innocent of, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't automatically mean that if you have been convicted of fraud or you've been given an overpayment, that they then get to check your bank account. They first of all have to work out a repayment schedule,
right,
and engage with you.
Okay.
So it's only for people who, for whatever reason, don't engage with that process.
Okay, so this is another thing where something's been said in the budget, and obviously some people have taken it to mean something that it actually doesn't. To the worst possible case scenario.
I mean, yes,
this happens a lot, doesn't it? Before you go on, we've got a super chat from Ivan. Thank you so much, Ivan, for the super chat. It's really kind of you. There was a man on BBC News who's a very rich businessman who runs 3 hospitality venues in London, pleading poverty. He needs to get in the real world to understand what poverty is. Can't agree more, mate. Thank you for that.
Well, he was the one, I think, if I'm correct, if you're thinking of the same one, it can only be the same one, who was saying no country has ever taxed its way to growth. And I keep having to show the graph because there is a chart which shows the tax revenue per capita against the GDP per capita. Yeah. And it's a very strong positive correlation. So it's like, actually, I think you'll find almost no countries are unable to tax themselves to growth. And obviously, correlation is not causation, but the causation is quite easy to explain. Where Tories raise taxes, sure, you don't get growth, but that's because they give it to their mates. But where you spend the taxes on building infrastructure, that encourages businesses, so that encourages growth.
Yeah.
So actually, yes, you do tax your way to growth. Well, obviously, it's not just that. You have to spend the taxes wisely. Yeah.
But it's funny, isn't it? Like, America sees itself as this low tax country, and it's really not. It is absolutely not. And the thing is that I think makes it so hilarious is, like, you could say that VAT in this country is a stealth tax because it's not on the label of everything. You pick something up in the supermarket, it says it's 39p, it's 39p. But if you pick something up in American supermarket, whatever price is on it, you have to pay more. There's gonna be a sales tax on that, and it differs depending on the state that you're in. And you're supposed to do this like mental mathematics of all the bits and pieces that you picked up. And you're not going to know how much your shopping is until you actually get to the checkout and they put it through the till.
To be fair, a lot of people don't anyway if they get in a shop. Like, most people aren't actually... If you're on a budget, you sort of have to be disciplined and you have to have your list. But a lot of people just put stuff in the trolley, to be honest.
Yeah, they do. But what I'm saying is that it's made obvious that here's your tax. Here's what it would have cost had you not had to pay tax. But you've got to pay tax, so here it is. And so in a country where it's made really obvious, it's the same country where they always go on about how low tax they are and how they're free to not pay tax. And
well, no, this is why Republicans are always talking about wanting to reduce taxes even more. But what they mean is on the rich, because they never seem to get around to reducing them on the poor.
Well, exactly. They're always there, which is just, I mean, it really showed this week after the budget came out. Yesterday in the Tory graph, or was it the Mail? I don't know, one of those horrible papers. There was like 5 people on the top, at the top of the page, so above the...
one of them was Isabel Oakeshott. I think it was... I can't remember who it was
and none of them went to a state school in this country. None of them went to a state school in this country, and they're all... I think
David Frost was one of them.
Freaking out, yeah. He went to a posh school. But yeah, and they were freaking out over this budget, which the vast majority of us, you can run your figures through the BBC calculator and see how much it's going to cost you. And I think for the vast majority of us, it's a bugger.
I don't think it's going to cost me anything, and I'm on plenty to be able to pay more.
Yeah.
But the Nadine Dorries was a funny bunny because she was, they've fallen back on the VAT on private schools again, and she's joined in on that. And she's saying, he's going to force students into state schools and they're already bursting at the seams. And I was thinking, well, first of all, it's not quite true because numbers are falling. But I was thinking, and why are they bursting at the seams, former Conservative cabinet minister?
Yes.
If you're going to say state schools are bursting at the seams, in other words, there's already too many in it, why is that?
Who's in charge? Who's in power? I don't know. But yeah, her and Gillian Keegan both went to state schools, and yet they've both got on the record the last couple of days going, oh my God, would somebody think of the private schools? And there was a sneaky trick on the front of, I think it was the Mail this morning, saying there's £2.1 billion or £1.2 billion tax grab against charities because private schools are charities. So they've just worked it out like, it's going to cost private schools X amount. And the way it's reported of Rachel Reeves, she's just stealing this money for herself. She's taking 40 billion off us. She's not. She's literally giving the 40 billion to us. It's like thinking Santa Claus is a bastard for giving you presents. How dare he? Does he just takes all the mince pies for himself and doesn't give us anything in return? It's just the reporting on it. There needs
This
to
is what I
be
say.
like a proper
when you can have the
thesis on
Telegraph in all, because I don't understand how you actually do that. In all honesty, I could understand it if these papers try to find someone who's genuinely fallen below the cracks and pretend and sort of go, oh, you know, where was it? Someone on the borderline, you know, someone who's just on the wrong side of a line. If I could understand it if they found those people and then try to push that. But getting two people who own 60 property, and they're buy-to-let mortgages they used for them.
bastards.
And then they're whining because they're going to have to put off their boat trip. And I'm not actually quite sure why, by the way. But, you know, for whatever reason.
Probably because of Brexit, mate. It's probably because of Brexit.
I mean, why don't you?
They're not allowed to be out the country for more than 3 months before they have to go back home, check in.
Well, it depends. They can sail around. But, you know, I'm just thinking, why? You know, it's, I mean, why? I don't understand how they think that ordinary members of the public are actually going to have sympathy for people who own probably 61 houses, because I assume they live in one that they don't let out. So 61 houses and a boat. It's not the what? No.
Yeah, but they've worked very hard for those houses that just sit there most of the time.
I'm sure they have. People work very hard for their slave wages.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
yeah. We've got someone in the chat saying Strammer, I don't know who that is, sent Peter Lynch to his death. Oh, that's nice. Did he?
Didn't actually
I
even
thought
send
it was
him to prison,
Farage who told him to go out and riot, or maybe it was Tommy Ten Names.
Tommy Robinson. It was literally Tommy Robinson.
One of our friends
who told him to go out and join a murderous mob.
Yeah,
because that's what it was. He was specifically at the hotel where they actually tried to burn, and it was hotel workers in there as well.
Yeah,
they set fire to an entrance, so therefore the intention was for the hotel to burn down, everyone inside to burn alive. That was what that guy did. That's why he went to prison. In fact, it's not. Do you know what? They were actually kinder than that. They were kind to him because I'd have sent him there for attempted murder and terrorism.
Well, I would have locked him away for the rest of his life, but in the event, that's what happened. So, you know, it's funny how, you know, the universe just comes around on these things. But yeah, when you turn up with a violent mob to, I don't know,
specifically to murder people,
murder children, and then you want sympathy for that. I'm sorry, you don't get sympathy for me. But I think Andrew's just sympathetic towards child murderers, and maybe other people who do terrible things to children. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Tommy Robinson himself has very, very close associations with the great number of, you know, paedophiles. So
yeah. I don't think Andrew did very well at school. He kind of forgets to capitalise the first letter of his own name. But there you go. So he's going away now. Bye, Andrew. Bye. You can continue to watch. You just can't actually do anything like a eunuch at an orgy. Story of your life. Anyway,
They
did what?
What's the fellow? Historian. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Who was the Chinese usurper who built the Forbidden Palace? Is it the Forbidden Palace or whatever it was?
Yeah.
But he obviously, I mean, like all big emperors, he had like a harem type thing, and apparently the eunuchs weren't necessarily as they used to have sex with them.
Yeah.
Because just because they didn't have any bollocks didn't mean to say they didn't get randy.
Ah, okay. But they just couldn't get them pregnant.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, eunuchs, I suppose, are less likely to be sexually active. It's not impossible.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. I learned something today. Anyway, back to the budget. So what else was in there that, before we get to the good stuff, that you felt could have been done a bit better? Was there anything else that you'd...
Well, I mean, I'm not really qualified to say. At the end of the day, the broad shape of it was we're getting a lot more public spending, which we desperately need. You can't physically get enough spending out of a budget that we need to make up for 14 years of no spending.
Yeah.
We the tax burden is like, when you look at where the taxes are being raised, so there is an indirect tax on some of the poorest because you've got the fiscal drag of tax boundaries being left in place. But the Tories did that, and it will, as soon as that period ends, it will lapse. But there is, so some people will pay more income tax because of that, but at the same time, at the lower end, minimum wage is going up by significantly more than inflation, and people's incomes in general will be going up. So that will more than compensate it, and it will also compensate, ironically, for the, you know, when people are saying about the bus fare, extra £2 a day. I mean, if you're on minimum wage, the the increase in minimum wage, even above the level of inflation, does more than make up for that. It's not necessarily an excuse, but it's people will still be better off even if you're on the minimum wage. So but by and large, although proportionally the amount of tax is probably the same across the deciles, the actual amount of tax is being paid by the wealthiest 10%.
Yeah.
In terms of the raw amount.
Oh no, what a shame.
So things like that, the broad shape of it is fine. Obviously, what now matters is exactly how they spend it. And at the end of the day, does it lead to, my main markers are things like, does it lead to people's income going up above the level of inflation to get back maybe to where it was in 2010, at least? Does it look like we're on a trajectory to get so that people can get better access to healthcare, which includes mental health care and dentistry? Does it get us into a place where people can, more easily afford housing? Those are going to be the key markers.
Yeah.
And there's nothing in the budget says, no, this isn't going to happen.
Yeah. We've got a few super chats that have come in. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. We've got Johnny Copperhead, first of all, with £5 super chat saying, according to the Sky budget calculator, I will be 38p better off each year. Oh, bugger! Having noticed that the super chat was for £5, Johnny is now £4.62 worse off. I'm very sorry for stealing the money out of your back pocket there, Johnny. But then you dropped another super chat in there. Thank you. If they can still do it, what's their unique selling point?
Very good.
That's a good one. Also, Jax, I left this because it's a question, I want to come to it. I was going to talk about this. What are your views on the farmers and the inheritance tax? As I personally think there shouldn't be any condition it will remain farmland. There shouldn't be any on the condition it will remain farmland. Just a couple of things to clear up here. First of all, you're talking about land worth over £2 million.
More than that. 2.65 million.
There you go. 2.6. That's tax free. That is absolutely tax free. You get that.
Assuming it's a couple who own the farm.
And you live on the farm, right?
Yeah.
So this is going to affect a small minority of farmers, like a handful, but it's the mega farmers who are, completely taking the piss out of the system.
Yeah, I mean, I know our sort of mutual compadre Liz Webster's fuming about it, but I can't quite understand why. Yeah,
get her on the show.
I don't know whether I should approach it. I can't understand why, because she had a bit of a tiff with Dan Needle, I'm afraid to say, and she said, and she wouldn't accept his figures even though they were the government's figures. And I don't know why, because, I mean, he's a tax lawyer and inheritance tax is a tax issue. So he is certainly an expert on it. If you're going to say he's wrong about something, you do need to have a really good reason. But I mean, he was explaining it's not even, we're not like, so at a first pass, people were saying because of this, it's actually only going to affect something like 13% of farmers. But even then, I mean, first of all, the amount of the inheritance tax you'll pay is on the excess anyway.
Yeah.
So if you've got a farm that's say worth 3 million, or an estate that's worth £3 million, you don't pay. It's not like once you've gone over there, you pay 20% on everything. It's just the excess.
The amount over.
So for some, it's still a relatively small amount, even if it goes above that. And then, of course, it's you don't pay anything at all if you've because the whole point is farmers are saying, well, I can't pass it on. You can pass it on. You just have to pass it on 7 years before you die. Now, obviously, no one can predict when they're going to die 7 years you might be diagnosed with a terminal disease, but that tends not to be. Oh, sorry, you've only got 7.5 years to live. So that's tricky. But what it can mean is you can start to, like, particularly as you get older, barring accidents, you can start to get your kids to take over parts of the estate. You can be like breaking it up and giving them bits at a time to keep it below the level. And for the super wealthy, again, I'm not a farmer, and I imagine there are some super wealthy farmers who like to do the farming anyway, but they're surely in a better position to just retire and pass it on to their kids anyway. And as long as you've passed it on and there's a good clear 7 years before you die, nothing is paid. There is no inheritance tax.
Yeah.
And the what this is really designed to stop And whether it's the best, I'm not qualified to say whether it's the best way. What it is designed to stop is people trying to pass on land and claiming it's farmland or agricultural land when it's not.
Yeah.
That's what it's really designed for.
Yeah. Gareth T, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm hoping my now ex-colleagues in prison get a proper pay rise and the kit they need. Can I tell you the full story another day? Yes, absolutely, Gareth. You can do that. It'd be good to have a chat with you about your experience working in jails, if you can now talk about them freely since you're not there anymore. There's a lot of talk about the Forbidden Palace in Beijing. Business Cat is telling us that apparently when the eunuchs retired, they were given their anatomy back in a jar. A bit different from a carriage clock, I suppose, says Business Cat. And then we've got Dark 4x4 saying, something pissed off Jeremy Clarkson. If it's a working farm and making a profit, you can defer the payments and work out a payment plan.
You can also pay it over 10 years. You can pay it over 10 years as well.
Yeah.
So this idea that you suddenly get hit with this bill and will therefore be forced to sell is like... if it's a very, very unprofitable farm, but somehow very valuable at the same time, sure. But yeah, you get 10 years to pay it.
Yeah. Nick is telling us that Liz says her equipment plus livestock alone exceeds the threshold. Well, yeah, but you only pay it the extra on top of the threshold.
Pay the extra.
So, yeah. No, it'd be fun to talk to Liz about
that. And there'll be lots of dodges.
Do you want to talk to Liz? She'll set that up. You can have it out with her. Go on.
I don't know that it's that big a thing. Well, I can't because I'm not a tax lawyer. She needs to actually talk with Dan Needle. But, she did say things like, we know this because it's our business. And I was thinking, well, fishermen didn't understand fishing. We got that because they all supported Brexit and still do. And also, it's not farming. It's tax law. And Dan Needle's a tax lawyer. I think, if he's getting something wrong, and he's really gone over it. He's spent like a day on it.
Yeah.
You're really going to have to explain where he's going wrong rather than just saying, I know better.
Yeah, yeah.
But, again, it's going to be quite raw for people who are affected, isn't it?
Yeah. Clarkson wrote, this is Slayer Rocks 2
I don't
here.
really care about Clarkson.
Clarkson wrote that he bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax. So there you go.
He's actually just giving ammunition to Keir Starmer then. I thought he didn't like Starmer.
And Craig is agreeing. Yeah, basically Clarkson bought the farm specifically as a tax dodge. Because he didn't do anything with it for years, and then he did Clarkson's farm.
He's not going to... I mean, he made a success of it, it's fair. But, it's like... But you're not going to pay it anyway, because the other thing... I do get with farms... See, I do wonder if the farming thing is a bit like the bus fare and the... the personal allowance, the winter fuel allowance, in that you can justify it, but at the same time, is it politically wise for the amount it's because that's a bit of a clue. It's really not going to affect many people.
Have you been watching Yes Minster again?
No.
Is it wise?
But you do. It sort of gives you a clue that not many people are going to be paying this because it's only expected to raise a few £100 million.
Yeah.
Which is, so it's, so Clarkson was likable when he was anti-Brexit. Clarkson's never been likable. He's always been an arse. Even if you thought he was an entertaining arse on Top Gear, he was still, even then, an arse.
Yeah. John Hart bringing us into the second half of the show here where we're going to talk about stuff that we liked. John Hart is saying, Owen Jones has been very quiet regarding the budget. Now, he might have COVID or something, or be under the weather, I don't know. Or there might not be much in there for him to complain about. So we've got a super chat coming from Ivan Ambrose, and then we'll talk about the pudding. We'll talk about the good stuff in there. Thank you very much, Ivan. The worst part of the budget proceedings was by far Private Jet Man throwing all his toys out the pram. He has no cause to be angry. We have every cause to be angry from 14 years of Tory damage. You're talking about Rishi Sunak there, and specifically...
It's not the air duty on private planes he cares about. It's the capital gains tax going up.
Yeah. By a fraction. Like, they've gone up by a tiny amount, and they're still the lowest in the G7.
There's the potential for them to keep getting cranked up each
Yes,
year. Though,
well, that's the hope. And Thomas Joseph Lamarck, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Your first super chat, thank you. That's very kind of you. Okay, so let's talk about the pudding then. So what was in there? Was there anything that was surprising? Was there anything that you weren't expecting, or was this all trailed?
Defence getting a boost, because as soon as you hear that defence is getting a real terms boost of just over 5%, you start to think, well, the boost was over 5%, but it was also a real terms boost, probably about 2.6%, I guess. It was that was surprising, because I thought, yeah, we do need it, and we might need it a lot depending on how things go in America next week. But it was still a surprise, because it's almost like if that's going to get a boost, then we knew that the Department for Health and Social Care and the Department for Education were definitely going to get a boost, and they did. So that was the first one. And then when the minimum wage was going up more than expected, and again, the whole point of it is that it should, because if minimum wage falls below 2/3 of the median hourly wage, then technically that's classed as poverty wage. So they're keeping it above that, admittedly only just above it, but still above that. Which of course means as long as they do get incomes in general going up at a decent rate, then the minimum wage should go up at a decent rate as well, because it's going to be pegged to it. Because that's the whole point now. It's supposed to be based on the actual cost of living, rather than just pegged at what is the lowest we can get away with without a riot.
But yeah, the defence spending going up. I mean, I think that tells us a lot about how this Labour government is thinking the world's going to go in the next few years, especially, as you say, if the orange one wins next week, which fingers crossed he won't. But if he steals the election or whatever, we're going to be not only like, I think you did a video about this week, didn't you? About the fact that if Trump gets in, it's going to drive us back into the arms of the EU very, very quickly. There's surprisingly quickly.
But also China. Like, we're literally going to have to form whatever alliance we can, because it will whatever the OBR say about, growth's not going to look brilliant over the next few years, there'll be no growth at all. We'll be into recession in this parliament if Trump wins.
Worldwide recession. It's going to be 2008 all over again, isn't it?
Well, this is what I'm hoping not. But so and something like that. I mean, recession just sounds really bad, even if, because that just means the economy's shrinking. Even if you can still rebalance the economy to make individual people feel better off, just the word recession is so toxic that it could be horrendous. So that's the fear. But like you say, hopefully it doesn't win. Hopefully everyone who says the polls are all completely gobbledygook and actually Harris is going to win comfortably, which I think might be a bit, but anyway, I don't know. Hopefully that is what happens.
Well, I mean, look, the polls aside, all things being equal, she should win handsomely. Like, she should absolutely smash it out the park.
It should be utterly impossible for Trump to win.
Especially as you look at the figures for young women voting, and they're way more likely to vote for Kamala as opposed to young men who are not voting for Trump in as many, in as great proportion, but also not in as big numbers.
You've got groups that are Republicans against Trump. I mean, this has not happened before. When you're not talking about little fringe rebels breaking away, because that happens. You're talking about mainstream Republicans. I mean, you've got Trump's vice president again saying, let us be clear, Trump was not asking me to, delay or anything like that. He was telling me to overturn the election.
He was telling me to cheat and to overthrow the American democracy.
Steal the election.
But I hope, I hope that the situation is this, that Kamala wins by a landslide. There can be no arguments about missing ballots or hanging chads or any nonsense like that. If she doesn't, and she does win by a bit, and Trump tries his little dirty tricks to try and get himself into the White House, I hope that the President of the United States, Joe Biden, just overrides anything that anyone else tries to do.
This is what I was wondering, because he has to have stolen the election before It's not like in this country where it's an immediate transfer of power, but it's also run by officials, not politicians.
Yeah.
There is a transfer of power, and if this is what I can't understand, if Harris wins and the results show that she's won, I don't see how any dirty tricks realistically work, because Biden will just say, no, I'm not handing over to you.
Who certifies the votes in Congress?
Republicans.
No.
It is, apparently.
No.
It's a committee.
Yeah,
no,
but
the certificate, yeah. But the actual members of it, there's going to be a lot of new members who have to be certified by this apparently arcane committee.
Yeah, and
So
there could be some argy-bargy there. But the person who certifies the votes, the actual college votes, is Kamala Harris.
Not strictly speaking the case. Although the focus was on Mike Pence last time, that's because the Democrats were in control of the House in general. So although they have a role in it,
right,
they're not the power.
Okay, so Mike Pence couldn't have overridden them even if he wanted to.
Not really, no.
I just thought it was quite delicious irony that if Kamala wins, then she gets to announce that she's won.
Well, there is that. I mean, in reality, that should be what is going to happen.
And the winner is me.
Yeah.
Happy days.
Yeah.
And Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. It would be worse if the Tories were still in power and Trump won again.
Actually, if the Tories were still in power, it wouldn't matter who was in the White House. We'd be knackered. Knackered.
And Fisham Stuck says, Graham, she's no more Kamala than yesterday was Halloween. Harris herself pronounces her own name Kamala. I'm just reading that as Kamala.
Yeah, I mean,
I've seen it written as a comma, like at the end of it, middle of a sentence, comma with la written after it. So that's how it sounds to me. People pronounce
things in different ways. I always get this. Hey, it's pronounced like this. It's pronounced however I pronounce it. I went when I was at university in my third year. There was a French student there. He called me Philippe. I didn't go. No, it's Phil. I just said that's how you pronounce it. That's all right.
Yeah, okay.
People pronounce things differently.
But I do think it's disrespectful when people kind of get your name wrong, kind of on purpose, and it's a bit
of on purpose. That's
it's a microaggression a lot of the time.
But that's on purpose. But if you just pronounce a thing like you pronounce it, like I say Rishi Sunak, and people go, "Oh, but he says Sunak." Yeah, but I don't.
Yeah, I say Farage, and he says Farage.
Actually, do you know what? Braverman's a funny one because I used to say Swella Braverman. Right.
Yeah.
And then I was getting the impression a lot of people say, oh, it's often pronounced Braverman. So I ended up saying Braverman. And then I heard when an actual Tory MP referred to her as Swella Braverman. And I thought to myself, fucking bastard, you know her as well. So I was probably doing it right in the first place. Then there's Badenoch. Badenoch is Badenoch.
Yes.
But again, that's because
nothing bad about her.
Yeah, I've seen it written. I've seen it written long before I ever heard anyone who knows her pronounce it.
Yeah.
So I'll just say, and I'm not going to change it because she's not complaining. I mean, she personally complains to me. If she feels deeply offended, okay.
Well, she did make a video in which she did say it's Badenoch, not Badenoch.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, she said there's nothing bad about me, something like that. I was like, yes, there is. But
it's not only is there something bad about you, there's something very Enoch about you.
If I purposely mispronounce someone's name, I do it on purpose. Generally speaking, Phil.
The only person I do that with is Leanderthal.
Farage, Bad Enoch, yeah. And Dark says Biden is the one who hands over power. He can say, I've had a health scare. I wish to time with my children and grandchildren, but can't in good conscience lead a country. I will honour the vote. Play It Cool says it's a bit disrespectful when the person corrects you, but then you still call it the way you want to say it. That's what I mean.
Yeah, that's then you've been deliberately rude.
Yes.
But no one has said, oh, actually, in my language, that means dickhead. So can you not do that, please?
Yeah.
So, you just do your best.
I think there's that thing between Kamala, like Karma, like, Karma Chameleon, and comma. And the Americans say comma slightly differently, but I try and get it as close to what the Americans seem to say it.
I don't want to try and put an American.
Whereas Trump says her name incorrectly on purpose because he's being disrespectful. So yeah, it's a fine line to walk, but I try not to say things wrong. Scott, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Harris's name is difficult for British speakers because we don't elongate our sound like the Yanks do. Our sound. Business Cat says it's North versus South, grass versus grass, Bath versus Bath. And it's like Zanelski being spelt with only one Y. Well, number 3, the difficulty with that is you're translating from Cyrillic into the Roman alphabet, and that's where trouble arises because there's not one way of transliterating it into Roman characters. Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Everyone's been very kind this afternoon. Thank you. I disagree, Phil. There you go. You got a dissenter in the ranks. I don't know what we need to do about this, Phil. Sunak would have been awful with Trump, giving in to him and letting him off the hook for everything.
We might find that anyway. Let's wait and see. Well, let's hopefully not have to wait and see. But I don't necessarily think... I think we're America's bitch because we have to be someone's bitch, right? We're either going to be America's bitch or China's bitch.
I don't want to be anyone's bitch.
Well, no.
I want to be my own.
No one
bitch.
does want to.
Oh yeah.
But nonetheless, we have to accept that the reality is that the largest economies in the world are the United States, China, and the EU, and we're not part of any of them.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, because we decided to vote our way out of the future of this country. People pointing out, I think Nick's pointed out already in the chat today, the 40 billion black hole that is being filled in this budget is only exists because of Brexit. Great. Thanks, Tories.
Well, I mean, if we didn't have Brexit, then it would have been much easier because we'd be getting more tax revenue.
Yeah, exactly. There wouldn't be the 40 billion black hole. Or the 22 billion.
I still suspect there would be. They'd have still found a way. Because remember, all they used to do was give the money to their mates anyway. So I still suspect there would have been.
That's very true.
So it doesn't necessarily follow that we wouldn't. It's just, it would have been easier for Labour to have repaired the economy.
Yeah. It's getting back to the budget then. So all in all, there were a few things that could have been done a bit better, but I generally thought it was a pretty good budget. I mean, am I wrong?
You can tell that by there's no sensible arguments against it.
Yeah.
In the press.
Well, there's no sensible arguments in the press at the best of times, Phil. So
no, but I mean, when they have to go, will no one think of the people with 60 properties in the vote? I think you've won.
Yeah. So, do you think that the gamble of waiting 3 months after they got elected to bring out, do you think that gamble worked?
I think what didn't work was you're not going to like this budget for 3 months. That's what didn't work. Because the thing is, they could have actually hyped the hell out of the budget and still claimed to have delivered. Because at the end of the day, what people wanted was improved spending. They wanted to know that austerity was over, and that's what the budget does. All they had to do was to be able to demonstrate we're giving the NHS shitloads more money, and we're giving education shitloads more money, and we're still going to be like cutting debt because some people care about that over the next 5 years. That's all. That's it. And they've protected most people, most low to middle income earners, as I said. There's been no direct increase in taxes on low to middle income earners.
Yeah.
At all. None at all, as they promised. So really, they absolutely could have gone to town on talking about all the extra spending that they were going to be able to deliver, and that this budget would have delivered on that. And I think what's probably going to happen now is people, in fact, YouGov have got some polling on this, which they say is not great reading for the government. So I'll read that at some point. But it wouldn't surprise me in a way, because people already got used to the idea from Labour that the budget was, not going to be all bells and whistles. And the media are whining about it since as well. Oh, yeah, and they're talking about, the pound's gone down, the pound's gone down. Yeah, because Rachel Reeves has literally borrowed as much as she could, right? Investors don't like that. And yet, the pound went down. What was it? In fact, I've got the figures here.
Penny.
It went, better than that. I've got it in better views. It went down 0.7%, right? Whereas the Truss mini budget had it drop 8%.
Wow.
Just for context.
Wow.
Just for context.
Well, I come on to this because I wanted to talk about the same people who said that the mini budget was amazing are the same people who are now decrying this budget. Thank you very much to Johnny Copperhead. for the £2 super chat. Excellent budgie, and I hate birds. That's fair enough. And also, I've just realised that Gallifreyan Ren has pointed out that Phil said deliver. Well, actually, Phil said deliver 3 times in that little piece, so we're going to have a little delivering animation there for that. In the spirit of this channel. But yeah, it has been really interesting looking at the response to this budget and how anyone, like, if you were that wrong in your work when you were working as a teacher, like devastatingly wrong about something, and then they asked you your opinion on the same thing a few years later, that would be mad, wouldn't it? That would be proper. Like, is it 2 years? Is it 2 years since Liz Truss's mini budget?
Yes, it is basically. Well, a little. Yeah, it was September, but yes, it's 2022.
So 2 years, right? You've got someone like Alistair Heath, who's a journalist, apparently, you know, one of these pundits, a very posh man. He's called Alistair, for Christ's sake. No offense to Alistair who watches this. He writes that this is the worst budget of all time, and it's horrible, and it's going to destroy Britain, and this is the end of growth, and the end. And at the same time, you can just look back 2 years ago to an article that's still online that he wrote saying that Liz Truss's mini budget, Kwasi Kwarteng's mini budget, was the best thing since sliced bread. Alas, they are embracing Milton Friedman's economic model of disaster capitalism. Oh, yay. Blood on the streets. Best time to make money. And you're like, how does this guy have a job? And this is it. How many times do these people have to be wrong before they get the sack?
They don't. But there was a Tory MP this morning, Gareth Davis, who was asked point blank.
Yeah.
So compare the Liz Truss mini budget and Rachel Reeves budget, and which one is worse? Which one comes off worse? And he actually said with this, it wasn't actually a very straight face, to be fair. He said, I think Rachel Reeves comes off worse. And this is why I keep saying, I was talking to someone this morning about it. This is why I keep saying, Labour need to keep, if they want to bang a message about how shit the Tories are, right? Stop talking about the mess they left it in, because you want to be moving on from that anyway. Yeah. Start to say that what the Tories want to do is, whether they bring Liz Truss back or not, they want to bring back her economics because they loved it and they hated having to disown it. And do that, because the Tories will never disown it. Like this is a Tory MP. It should be the easiest thing in the world to say, well, okay, yeah, we don't like this Rachel Reeves budget, but obviously the Liz Truss budget was an absolute. But we dealt with it at the time. Yes, that was a bad mistake, sure. Yeah. But they won't. They won't do that, because the Tory media liked it. A lot of their members liked it. A lot of their MPs like it. So so Labour can use that in a way that the Tories tried to use Jeremy Corbyn, but it didn't work in the last Parliament. They can use Liz Truss as the Tory bogeyman, because they will not disown her. Yeah. They will not disown her. If you say what the Tories want to do is to bring back Trussonomics, they will not say, no, we don't. Yeah. They will say things like, like she tried to say, oh, we did it a bit quickly. We didn't do it in quite the right way, as if the overall idea was fine. And because the public know that was such a terrible thing to do, let them hoist themselves on their own petard, because that's what they should. And I don't know why Labour don't keep doing that. That's what they should do. Yeah. They never abandoned Liz Truss economics. They never abandoned Trussonomics. No. That's what they want to do. And you know what? The Tories will never argue against that. They'll agree. Yeah. So
brilliant. Mr. TSK27 says, name thing reminds me of how many English pronounce our Welsh place names wrongly, like Llandudno.
I don't even try, do you know what? I don't even try, to be honest.
Oh, well, I grew up down the road from Wales, so went there quite a lot as a kid. But yeah, it's quite funny, like the fact that sometimes they have the signs in both languages. So they have Wrexham, which in Welsh is written Wrexham, and then they have the English spelling of it, which is exactly it's written like it's just the same. But yeah, just in case you got them mixed up.
Just because it's standard, isn't it? My favourite one was a few years ago, where there was a sign put up, a road sign put up. Yeah. In Welsh, and what it basically translated to, I'm sorry, I'm out of the office at the moment, because what they'd done, this person had sent an email, can you translate this for me, please? And they got the auto back because they were on holiday. And well, so they just thought, oh, thanks very much, and they put it on a road sign.
Great days. There was Shropshire Chris is asking what a petard is, asking for a friend. It's a bomb. It's a small bomb from back in the day, and if you were hoisted by it, it means you're blown up by your own bomb.
Yeah.
And David Swift says, fully agreed with Phil from the other day. I don't know who that was. Some other Phil. Labour saying it'll be painful. It'll be painful was the wrong approach. It's a fine budget, but isn't radical enough. People will have forgotten their own negative build-up. So what we're saying is, and Phil, we really need an animation for this, don't we? Is Labour comms are shite?
They are.
They're just shite. Like, what the? Who's advising their comms? Like, they're just even into Labour comms are crap. Like the way they communicate with their own
everything.
MPs
I mean, we
members
started off moaning about their attitude to social media,
Yeah.
but like every aspect of their communication is really bad.
I know, it's awful.
Everything.
Who's
I don't
in
understand how
charge
it's
of
possible
that?
to be
Who's
that
in
bad.
charge of that? Who do we speak to?
Well, what gets me is there can't be just one person in charge of all of it, because you're talking about communication to the public. You're talking as in through the mainstream media. Then you're talking about directly to the public through social media. Then you're talking about internal communication between cabinet ministers, because that seems a bit ropey. So there must be multiple people who are all terrible, and somehow
they're in charge.
they've been hired, and I don't understand why. I don't get it.
It's like something from a comedy. Like there should be like we had the thick of it. There should be a show, and it is just about Labour comms. I mean, obviously they wouldn't call themselves Labour comms, but it would just be such a biting satire of these absolute morons. And it's like they spend the entire day, worrying about the sentence structure of a sentence and not actually getting any work done. Viv is saying, Graham and Phil, email your MPs to look at your videos. Viv, we tried. We have tried. It just doesn't seem to touch the sides. And Mr. TSK 27 says, I can pronounce Othwhistle. Othwhistle, is it? It's written Oswald Whistle, but it's Othwhistle.
I struggle the most with southern, because I sometimes have to say south of England place names because there's some by-election there, and they get it's not pronounced like that.
Worcester.
It's like it'll be spelt Wigglewam, and they'll say but it's pronounced meh. I think okay.
Well, Shire, so you don't say Lancashire, do you? You say Lancashire.
Unless Americans do.
But Sher, SHER, was the word for Shire. Like they changed it in the Old English. It was Sher, and that's from where you get sheriff from as well. A riff of the Sher. Vision thing. All the Labour MPs I know are unhappy with the comms, especially the winter fuel announcement. Yes, same here. Vision thing. They're just like what? Nick and Dish says I can say the railway station in North Wales easily. Does that count? And then Viv is saying, get in contact with Led by Donkeys. They may grab the Labour attention better with a sign or two. They're very hard to get hold of. We have friends of friends who can probably get in touch with them. But they do their own thing. They like to do their own thing. They like to furrow their own. They like to plough their own furrow. They like to furrow their own.
Furrowing a plough sounds painful.
I know. It's been a long week, what can I say? Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. An absolute laugh. Badenoch said it's a Corbyn Labour government fronted by Starmer.
It's because they're so desperate. They know. It's because they know that the least popular thing about Labour is Corbyn. I'm sorry to Corbyn fans. It's just whether you think it's fair or not, it's just a fact. So they will constantly try and crowbar him in. He's literally even opposed Labour in the general election and won, and he's sat on the opposition benches with the Conservatives, but they will still try and crowbar him in because it's all they've got. But this is why Labour should look at that and go, well, we could do that with Liz Truss and it'd actually bloody work.
Oh my God. I can't believe I had to break out the emergency Corbyn there. That is phenomenal. That's just it. That is just bizarre, isn't it? That's like being in World War II and then blaming Kaiser Wilhelm. It's all Kaiser Wilhelm's fault. And you're like, what? That was the last one, mate. Jesus. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Ivan's been so kind today. Shia in my southern accent. I'm hoping that I'm saying that right instead of sure. Shia. And Christine Cash over in the US of A. Thank you very much for our Lincoln there, our €5 US dollars. Really appreciate that. That's really cool. And Sean Streeter is saying, again, someone said, oh, you beat me to it. There you go. Everyone's saying Shire in Scotland. We've got that was from Mr. TSK. And people are just talking about how you pronounce stupid things. I'll raise you Listeridge, maybe? Huddersfield, which is pronounced stupidly. They removed most of the letters. Yeah, I guess.
We do that in Yorkshire, to be fair. We haven't got time for all of that.
Chumney Warner. Chumney is spelled Chumwombledy or something.
We actually, no, we did. We miss a lot of letters out in Yorkshire anyway, in our pattern of speech.
Yeah.
I mean, I just said it there. I said pattern instead of pattern.
General pattern.
Because we've got a lot to say and not a lot of time to say it. And the problem is, like, because you'll notice people from Yorkshire like to talk a lot.
They do.
Which is fine. But when you've got one person from Yorkshire talking to another person from Yorkshire, you've literally got to get what you need to say out while the other one draws breath. So you haven't got time. You haven't got time to pronounce all letters.
I just thought it'd be funny if you did a 4 Yorkshiremen with you, Adam Lee, Ollie Bowler Hatman, and who was the fourth? Who was our 4th Yorkshireman?
I don't know.
We had a 4th, maybe Richard Corbett. No, it wasn't. It was someone more Yorkshire than that. But yeah, that'd be you'd all be talking over each other. It'd be hilarious. Yeah. No one get a word in edgeways.
Well, that's why I'm not sure how in reality you can ever have 4 Yorkshiremen talking. Because they only managed it on Monty Python because none of them were from Yorkshire.
Yes, that's true. They were just pretending. Yeah. But there you go. Gallifreyan Rem says, we don't need any extra letters. We're too busy, damn mine.
I haven't got any of them anymore.
No.
The housing estate, the mine I grew
Trouble
up
at
in.
Mill.
That's Lancashire. That's Lancashire.
Is it? Is that? It's
they had the
Mill.
mills. We had the.
You had the mines.
That's Lancashire. Okay. Yeah, they had the mills. We had the. I suppose we had some mills, but mostly we had the mines.
Oh, okay.
And steelworks.
And then someone stole the steelworks, somewhat ironically. There you go. And Nick is saying Corbyn's probably still annoyed that Article 50 wasn't triggered on June the 24th, 2016. Yeah, probably. Keeps him up at night. And then Jax is saying Southerners always mispronounce Atherton as someone who lives near the area. I probably mispronounced that as well. Michael Palin is from Sheffield, but he wasn't in that sketch, was he?
No.
Nope.
Oh, was he? I don't think he was.
No, he wasn't. Not the original one, anyway, not the 1947 show or whatever the hell it was called. Anyway, Leominster, Matt Martin saying, is that how you pronounce it? Lemster. Leo Minster. It's pronounced Lemster, I think. God, we're having fun with this, aren't we? Cleckheaton had textile mills. There you go. Cleckheaton. Do you know where that is? It sounds
it's roughly. Again, I'm sure we had some, but mostly Lancashire was famous for the mills, and we were famous. We were famous for being underground.
like
I mean, we had clothes, so I imagine there was the odd mill.
The dwarf race from Lord of the Rings, yes, from Middle Earth. There you go.
Only they used to actually share in their own wealth.
They had a problem with the bus in Liverpool because they had they put voices on the buses, and Egbert is not spelled like egg at all. It's AIG. It's not EGG, but it's pronounced Egbert. And there was somewhere else in Liverpool that they obviously, I don't know, ran it through AI or something. It just
well, that's I mean, my sat-nav does that at times.
Yeah, butchered the pronunciation. Toastester is pronounced toaster. There you go. And coffee equals kafefi. Anyway, so Phil, this might be our last agenda for a while, because this time next week I'm going to be up in the air. I'm going to be flying away at 28,000 feet above sea level, I hope, on my way to the Americas. And then while I'm on the island, I can't really do these kind of shows where we're talking to each other. But you're going to be back for Morning Brew next week, aren't you?
Next week.
And then that's it. We will be doing some more agendas, I guess, in December when I get back. This channel's going to get a little bit less of Phil and more of me. Yay! Suddenly, the viewer figure just goes off a cliff now. Everyone's like, "Oh, bugger that!" But I just would like to say thank you so much to Phil for everything he's done for this channel. I honestly couldn't have got this far without him. He's been incredibly supportive, not just giving up his time to appear on these shows and talk to you all, but also, you know, helping us with things like the PC that I use to actually stream the shows most days. So thanks for that, Phil. And Ivan, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. In my Suffolk accent, it's common to drop the T's, for, e.g. water for water. Yeah, Londoners do that as well.
Well, I mean, in Yorkshire, we sometimes, just to confuse people, will say water.
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 Vendetta's asking for more Tansky. Yes, we'll try and sort that out. Gattaca in Liverpool, says Vision Thing. Yeah, it's because it's Gate Acre, but it's pronounced Gattaca. But when I see it, I just think Gattaca because I've grown up with it. Whereas, yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I still remember when I was a kid being in Alton Towers and I was on one of the, you know, the what's it called? The Grand Canyon Rapids, and there were some Americans on the donut with us, and they were talking about going up to see Edinburgh. They were going up to Edinburgh, and the whole time we were like, what the hell are they talking about, Edinburgh? Well, and then we realised they were talking about Edinburgh. But they were literally saying... Anyway.
Well, you know, you don't know these things, yeah.
That's a case of where there's not enough letters. Just like taking the letters out, we just add them in. But there you go. So yes, is Starlink available on the island? Yeah, you can probably purchase it on a monthly basis. Nick, I'd rather eat my own head than give Elon Musk any money at the moment, because he's absolutely bonkers, and hopefully when Trump loses next week, he'll be in jail before you can say,
well, I mean, he's looking at a bit of a contempt of court himself, potentially.
Yeah. But they've allowed him to continue on.
Yeah,
did you see that? They've allowed him to continue on with his obviously illegal bribery of the people.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. This is why I worry about the judges in America. We can't go off on this now because we've already gone over time. But like, it's the judges they decide what to interpret the law, and that's a lot more power.
I mean, well, I mean, all judges do that. It's just that when you're politically appointed, you are political judges. That's the problem. They shouldn't be appointed by politicians.
Yeah. Anyway, I can get mobile phone reception on my island, so, you know, that's fine. I'll just hold my camera up. I'll hold my phone up in the air and do the shows. I'll have a really sore arm at the end of it.
You've just seen at the end, latest polling from YouGov. So for all the Tories going about how Keir Starmer's shit the bed in terms of his own polling, he's still polling in terms of a head-to-head. Oh, if this, you know, either Badenoch or Jenrick, Starmer's still shitting on both of them. So there's at least that.
Wow. Well, that's great.
And in actual fact, because normally you'd think to yourself, but once they get into it, they'll start to like raise their profile and they'll do better. And I'm thinking to myself, that's possible. That's possible. Yeah. I'm not sure either Jenrick or Badenoch are capable.
Yeah. Agreed.
In fact, I think they could see their poll rating go down.
Yeah. Ivan, thank you for the super chat and your thoughts. Something Labour needs to sort out is the uncertainty for people with disabilities and or mental health conditions.
Yes.
Couldn't agree more. The uncertainty, I mean, this is what we saw with the Brexit thing. It wasn't Brexit itself that was causing a lot of the problems at the time. It was the uncertainty and businesses not wanting to invest because they didn't know what the world would look like or what the country would look like in a few years' time, whether we Brexited or not. And again, with health, I mean, the waiting on test results is a lot more stressful than actually getting the test results and knowing that there's something you can do, or maybe there's something that you can't do, but at least knowing is a lot better for your mental health than having that uncertainty. I think humans really do not grapple with uncertainty very well, which is why a lot of us are freaking out about the election in a few days' time in America. But fingers crossed it'll be a landslide for Kamala. Don't forget, a landslide is for Kamala is a normal polling error away. So there you go. It's all good.
Unfortunately, so is a Trump win. So
don't say that. La, I can't hear you.
It's all right.
I just pushed my earpiece right into my ear more.
I'm a pretty good jinx. I always used to pick the wrong one at Wimbledon. Whoever I supported at Wimbledon until Andy Murray came along.
Okay, we'll support Trump then. Thanks. Please do that.
I'm not saying that. I'm not going that.
Jinx him. Anyway, Phil, thank you so much for doing these shows. We'll be back in December with another agenda, I guess. I'll be back tonight at 9:30 for the maybe the last Friday Night Social for a little while as well. So please join us for that. And until next time, I'll say thanks again to Phil. Thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks to everyone who's contributed to the chat, and thanks to everyone who's thrown a super chat in there. Give us a like on the way out. And until next time, I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.